Number 15. Waverly Hills Sanatorium. In the early 1900s, this hospital was built in Louisville, Kentucky for patients that were victim of the haunting disease of the time, tuberculosis. Many people died in this hospital, both from the disease and the inhumane tactics that were tested on patients to attempt to cure tuberculosis. The death count got so high that the hospital installed a body chute, which is, as you can imagine, where the bodies of the dead victims were thrown. Waverly Hills shut down in 1961, and since then it has been the site of many ghost TV shows, as well as a haunted reputation by the community and the world. Number 14. Helltown. Welcome to the town of Boston, Ohio, otherwise known as the end of the world and Helltown. This city has next to nothing going for it. In 1974, the state of Ohio made that city a national park because of its shockingly low population and history. The small community of people living there etched insults into their walls to show the injustice of them being kicked out of their homes. The state later dropped the plans of the national park, leaving the abandoned, mysterious town up for tons of debate and legend. Legends such as a ghost bus, a satanic church, and a giant mutant python. The area around Boston, Ohio celebrates Python Day annually because of these legends. Number 13. Byberry Mental Asylum. This place was built in 1910 with the shambled scraps of what could be found after the World War I shortage of materials. The asylum didn't take long to fall apart, both economically and literally. The asylum was handed over to the state of Pennsylvania, but didn't end up in an acceptable state until 1953. Through exploitation of inhumane living conditions and treatment of patients, most staff left the asylum in the 1980s. They set to demolish the building in 1991, but canceled the date upon finding millions of dollars in resources and materials inside, leaving the buildings abandoned until it was finally demolished in 2006 for a housing development. Number 12. Bongar Fort. Imagine a place so haunted that it actually became illegal to go to at night. Welcome to Bongar Fort in India. The history of this place is unsure amongst people. Everyone seems to believe one of two stories, one being a king going to live there and dooming the fort with the angle of the shadows completely engulfing the fort. The other story being a magician falling in love with a princess at the fort. The magician attempting to trick the princess into loving him, the princess killing the magician, and the magician's final words cursing the fort. Since then, many people have recalled their unique and spine-chilling encounters at Bongar Fort. My computer even froze up, and I actually had to restart it when I was looking up the images. Number 11. The White House. Ah, the White House. Home of the highest security, America's #1 person, and ghosts. Since the construction of the White House, there have been accounts from presidents, first ladies, and senators of hearing or seeing strange entities. The most notable case being the ghost of President Abraham Lincoln roaming the halls of the White House. Eleanor and Franklin Roosevelt both reported seeing tall, lanky figures in the Lincoln bedroom, which is now used as a study. Although no records show of anybody dying inside the White House, I would not be surprised if some presidents felt like they just didn't put in enough overtime in the job. Number 10. Monte Cristo. A pregnant caretaker being thrown over a balcony, a baby being dropped down the stairs, and a poor boy being burned to ash in his sleep. All of these events took place in the notorious Australian estate named Monte Cristo. This home was built in 1885 and has been constantly transferring owners due to the unfortunate and suspicious demise of the owners, or the owners fleeing the home with fearful insanity. The current owners bought the house in 1963, and since then one of the owners has passed away, but one still remains. Olive Ryan claims that she has felt presences almost as commonplace to this point. One thing is clear about this estate. too much has happened for it to be coincidental. Number 9. The Amityville House. The most widespread haunted house in history. There have been tons of movies, books, and legends made upon the basis of this house. Formerly a house to hold Native Americans that were sick and insane, this home is notorious for the DeFeo killings in 1974, where Ronald, the son, shot and killed his father, 2 brothers, and sister. Ronald, who is still alive today, then claimed that ghosts had convinced him to commit the killings. Many years later, a couple, George and Kathy Lutz, purchased the home. The two claimed that paranormal anomalies had started to occur, and they were increasing in intensity and insanity. The family immediately fled, probably for the better, and contacted paranormal geniuses Ed and Lorraine Warren to investigate. They reported that the house was definitely in the hands of evil entities, and that none should ever dare enter the home for safety of themselves. Number 8. Island of the Dolls. Isla de las Muñecas, the Island of the Dolls. Off the coast of Mexico, you'll find the most bone-chilling island with an even more bone-chilling history. Don Barrera, the caretaker of the island at the time, found a young girl washed up, dead, on the shore. With her, a small doll. He hung the doll from a tree in memory of the girl, but from there, the story says that the ghost of the girl took over Don and made him find and hang more dolls from the trees, giving the island the creepy, morbid look. Then that little girl, along with apparently other little girls that had died around the world, found a safe haven in the Island of the Dolls. 50 years since finding the dead girl, Don Barrera was found dead himself in 2001 in the same place as the little girl. Number 7. Stoll Cemetery. Named one of the 7 gateways to hell, Stoll Cemetery in Kansas is said to be the courtroom of Satan himself. The legends revolve around a church that was built there in 1867 and was used until it was randomly abandoned in 1908. Since then, the walls started crumbling and the roof caved in. The destroyed church was then said to be used by Satanists, witch covens, and cults who would sacrifice animals so that this cemetery could become a gateway to hell someday. I guess they got what they wanted and worshipped. Number 6. Queen Mary Hotel. This 1,000-foot beast of a ship was finished and sailed in 1937. It was used as a luxury ship until World War II came around, and it turned into the ultimate battleship. Working flawlessly through the war, it was refurbished into a luxury ship afterwards, but was rendered ill-suited for work and sailed its last in 1967, when it became a permanently docked hotel. However, there are 45 reported deaths aboard the ship during the war, and many say that those spirits did not leave the ship, even now. Many horrific anomalies have taken place when tourists have boarded the ship. It currently sits, docked in Erie, in Long Beach Harbor, California. Number 5. The Tower of London. During its 900 years of existence, many faces have come into the Tower of London and not come out. Thomas Becket, one of the engineers building the tower, was killed by the grandfather of one of the kings. Arbella Stewart married royalty without proper permission and was placed in house arrest inside the tower until her untimely death in 1615. Queen Anne Boleyn was beheaded near the tower. These are 3 of the many, many stories surrounding death in this infamously historical building. Tons of people have come out of that tower claiming to have seen a ghost roaming around, following them, and even chasing them down the halls. It is safe to say that the Tower of London has blood engraved into its halls, and spirits enslaved into its halls. Number 4. Château de Chateaubriand. Constructed in the 11th century in France, Chatou has, like the Tower of London, held many horrific events. One occurring in 1252, when the king of Chatou left his wife behind for a crusade. After a year of not returning, he was announced dead, until he returned months later, causing his wife to literally die of shock in his arms, along with other stories of betrayal, lies, and death. It is said that all of the victims that lie in Chatou now roam the halls of this giant castle. Number 3. Eastern State Penitentiary. Built in 1829 in Philadelphia, Eastern State Penitentiary was made for the worst of the worst. It held criminals such as Al Capone and was known for its spine-chilling, inhumane ways of discipline and torture. Let's talk about some of these methods, shall we? Cover your ears, children. One way included dunking inmates in a tube of freezing water, then hanging them outside in the blistering winter cold, which caused ice to form on and around the skin. Another was a chair that restrained limbs so tightly it often caused need for amputation. And finally, the hole. This was literally a giant black hole in which the disobedient inmates were literally thrown in and given no light, human contact, exercise, toilet, and were given just enough air and food to survive. The prison was closed in 1971 and has numerous accounts of echoing voices, shadowy figures darting around cells and walls, and some people have even reported seeing the faces of certain inmates when they would touch a cell or walk inside. Number 2. Poveglia. Welcome to Poveglia, a small island in the Venice Lagoon. This island has been a station of quarantine, a dumping ground for plague victims, and a mental hospital. It's like every horrific setting from this list on one small island. The area is long since abandoned now, and is overtaken by weeds. But, because of all the death that is on this island, it is believed that 50% of the soil on this island is human ash. This island doesn't mess around with teasing people that come over to visit the legend. There have been reports of figures choking tourists to the ground, throwing them down to make their heads hit large rocks, and even pushing them off the dock into the water. This island consists of an old bell tower, a station for organizing defense, a series of homes, and a mental hospital for those that did not cooperate with the rest of society. Number 1. Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. Tell me what kind of people would change a normal high school in Cambodia into a torture chamber? The Communist Party of Cambodia would, that's who. In 1976, Tuol Sve Pre High School became S21 prison, the site of the Cambodian genocide. 14,000 people entered that torture center, and 7 walked out. Think about that for a moment. If you were brought here, you had a 0.0005% chance, or a 1 in 2,000 chance of leaving. That is literally insane. And add to it, they took photos of not just every single victim before death, but then after death. What happened here was genocide, and the place is now a museum to remember the 13,993 people that died in that building. People that have visited it now say that the building is constantly riddled with the ghosts of the men, women, and children that were brutally tortured and murdered inside of the cells and classrooms of the prison. And the man that ran this prison, a school teacher, is still alive today. After literally years of trials, the Cambodian court gave him life imprisonment with no appeal and no sentence deduction. Perhaps when that man goes to his grave, so will the spirits of the victims of S21. That was the top 15 haunted places on Earth. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like so I know. It helps out a lot. And if you want to see videos similar to this, make sure to subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Like always, stay beautiful, and I hope your town never ends up on a list like this. Sweet dreams.